everybody, so today we're going to make braised beef short ribs, and this is one of my favorite recipes, especially served over some garlic mashed potatoes that we'll also make. This dish is a favorite of ours, but it is something that will really impress dinner guests if you have people over, because it is so rich in flavor, and I think it's fairly easy to make. There's not too many ingredients here, and the process is pretty straightforward, and it's one of those dishes where once you get everything kind of assembled, you can put it in the oven and leave it set there for a few hours, or you can put it in the fridge, and then when you're ready to cook, you can put it in the oven at that time. So we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll show you the ingredients first, and then begin the process of getting this dish going. Okay, so let's go over the ingredients. In this case, I'm just having 2 packs of these chuck short ribs that you can get at Publix. Sometimes you can get them a little thicker, but 2 packs is more than enough for 2 people and leftovers. I quartered up some baby portobello mushrooms, about 8 ounces. You'll need about 4 cloves of garlic that I sliced, and you can see doesn't have to be too thin because this is going to be braising in the oven for quite some time. Then I have about 6 to 8 medium-sized carrots. This is something you can add more, and again, just kind of did a rough cut on these. They're going to be in the oven, and a stick of celery just for added flavor. You're also going to need a whole garlic, and we'll get to that. That's for the garlic mashed potatoes, and we'll get to how we use that in just a little bit. You're also going to need some beef broth. You can actually use chicken broth if that's all you have, but I think beef broth gives it a little richer flavor. You're going to need some red wine. And don't buy an expensive wine. A cheap wine is fine. You're going to be cooking the alcohol out of it and reducing it down. So you're going to need almost a full bottle of wine. And again, it depends on how many ribs you use, and we'll go over that when we cook. And then, of course, you're also going to need some kosher salt. You're going to need some black pepper, and a can or a tube of tomato paste. All right, let's get started. Okay, so we're ready to get started. Now what I did was I went in and I trimmed, in some cases, the short ribs you get will have a big cap of fat on them. If that's the case, I trimmed that off, but don't worry about getting too aggressive with it, because again, these are going to cook a long time, and that's going to break down, and actually some of that fat is going to add, of course, flavor to the dish. So now what we want to do is we're going to put a generous amount of kosher salt on these, okay? And I just do all around with the salt. Okay. And then we're going to put some fresh cracked pepper. On them. All right, so while I've been doing this, I also have I'm using a Dutch oven. You can use a roasting pan. The Dutch oven works great. But anyways, I've got the Dutch oven heating up so that we're going to put a little bit of olive oil in there and brown these up. So we'll go over to the Dutch oven in just a minute. Okay, so we're ready. We've got this Dutch oven is fairly nice and warm now. And I'm going to put a couple tablespoons of olive oil in there until I see it ripple to know that it's hot. Okay, now we're going to put the short ribs in face down. And the idea here is just to give a little bit of a brown to them. And also, while we're doing this, I have my oven that I am preheating at 350 degrees. So that when we're ready to put these in the oven, it'll be nice and warm. So we're just going to brown these for a few minutes, and then we'll come back. Okay, so as they start to get a little bit of color, you can flip them over and start doing the sides a little bit. And at this point is where I like to add that garlic that we sliced up. Put a little bit out the pan. And again, we're not trying to cook the meat here. All we're trying to do is just give it a little bit of color. Okay? And of course, once you've had it in the oven and it's braised, it's going to have a beautiful dark color, and these are going to be so tender they just fall off the bone. So, okay, so we're going to let these just cook a couple more minutes. We're going to come back. We're going to add the tomato paste and the wine. Stay tuned. Okay, so the process so far has taken about 5 or 6 minutes. I don't do them too long. I know other people do, but at this point, I'm just going to remove them to a pan. I'm going to have my heat on medium. Okay. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the tomato sauce. And it's one little can, 6-ounce can. And it's important that you cook that tomato paste a little bit. Otherwise it's bitter, and it will impart a bitter flavor to the short ribs. So you're just going to cook it for, like I said, a few minutes, a minute or two. Okay, and don't worry about little bits on the bottom of the pan when we put that wine in. That's going to deglaze. Okay, I think we can add the wine. Again, not an expensive wine. And I'm going to put in anywhere from 1/2 to 3/4 of a bottle. I'm going to turn the heat up to medium high and bring this to a boil. Okay, I'm going to give it a good stir here. Make sure all that tomato paste is dissolved. And you can see it's already developing a beautiful braising liquid here. Alright, so we're going to bring this up to a boil and we'll come back in just a minute. Okay, so at this point, this wine and tomato paste has been cooking for about 5 minutes or so, and it's reduced quite a bit, and the smell is just phenomenal. So what we're going to do now is we're going to return the meat back to the container. Okay. And I kept a couple of them out. That's too much, so we'll have another use for the others. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add in our vegetables, which is the carrot, celery, and mushrooms. Okay, kind of get them evenly distributed. Okay. And now what we need to do is come in with our beef broth. And we're going to add probably half a container. Now remember, as this cooks, it's going to reduce down as well. So that is probably more than enough. Next thing we'll do is I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to put it in the oven at 350 degrees for about 3 hours. And I'll check it after about 2.5, and it should be good to go. Okay, so real quick, for the garlic mashed potatoes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a garlic clove and just clip the top of it off. Okay, I'm going to put it in an oven-safe dish here. Put a little bit of olive oil, a little salt, and a little pepper. And what I'm going to do is cover this, and I'm going to put this in the oven for at 350 along with the short ribs, and I'm going to cook that for about an hour to an hour and a half. I'll have to check it and once it's tender, and then we'll take it out and let it cool. Okay, so we take the garlic that's been roasting in there for about 2 hours. We've taken it out, and we're going to let that cool down just a little bit. And then when we make our mashed potatoes, we'll add that to them. Okay, so the potatoes are almost done cooking. And now we're going to take the garlic, which has been roasted and cooled, and we're just going to squeeze that out. And so you're just trying to get that garlic out of the okay. And then we're going to clean this off. Basically get the paper out of it. And then once we get the paper cleaned out of it, what we're going to do is we're going to put that into the potatoes when we do the mashing, and just that little bit, which is pretty intense, will give them that good garlic mashed potato flavor. Okay, so now that the potatoes are drained, we're going to add in the garlic, some butter, and milk, and mash those up, and then we'll have mashed potatoes here in a few minutes. Alright, so we're going to take the dish out of the oven. We're going to, and you can see how much the liquids have reduced, and that is going to be very tasty. Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of the garlic mashed potatoes, and we're going to take a short rib, different spoon here, and so you can see that's a really rich, flavorful dish. Bon appetit.